Hey y'all, I'm Dr. Lucretia Cook, but you can call me Dr. LaLa. Welcome back to another episode of the Revolve Podcast, where grief and loss are a journey, not a final destination. And so today, I want to talk about healing. Yep, that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're not talking about the pretty one with the soft glam makeup and the glitter eye. No, we're not talking about that one. No, ma'am. Let's talk about the real one. The healing, the version that shows up with loneliness, setbacks, and identity shifts. That one. The one that gets hard sometimes. The one that we're going to call the messy middle. Yep. And why are we calling it the messy middle? Because it's the one that has a space between who you were and who you're becoming. It's the one where old identities don't fit anymore, but the new ones haven't quite fully formed just yet. It's the one where we have a space that's still emotionally raw, spiritually tender, and very confusing. Yep, that one. And here's the truth: healing isn't always pretty, but it's always worth it. And that is a promise that I'll stand on. Healing is always worth it. So let's start with the fact that healing is not a linear process. It's not one of those things where we have step one, step two, step three, step four, so forth and so on. And then when we get to step five, healing is complete. It would be nice if life worked that way, but I'm afraid it doesn't. You're right. So healing is more like a spiral, right? Life is like a spiral. The things we go through, issues may present themselves again and again. But here's the thing: as we go through this process, we may be encountering some of those same feelings, some of those same emotions, some of those same experiences, but in a spiral, we're going around in a circle, but we're continuing to go up, right? And so we continue to go higher. And so healing works like that. So even though we may feel a familiar pain again, right? The goal is when we encounter that thing again, we meet it with more wisdom. We have more tools to work with. And we're able to show ourselves more grace than before, right? Because we may see it and have the same view, but you're at a higher level, right? So even though you can still see it, you have a different perspective. There should be some evolution in your point of view, right? In a spiral, returning to something that's familiar isn't regression, right? This is refinement. Sometimes we go through the same thing over and over until we get it, right? And each time we go through that thing, it's an opportunity to process it with new insight. So we're able to respond with new strength and new understanding, right? And here's the thing, sometimes it might not be readily visible, the progress that you're making, that is. It might not be readily visible, but it's happening underneath the surface. So it's just like when you're walking a staircase, a spiral staircase, right? You feel like you're going around in circles, but each round you go higher, right? So that's the goal in our healing process. Even though we may be going around, we still want to elevate. We still want to learn something new, right? We still want to be able to refine the process, what we're learning in the process, right? Because even though healing may be unfolding quietly, that progress that we can't readily see is paving the way for lasting change, right? Just because we can't see it doesn't mean God isn't working, right? So again, even though you may find yourself facing the same emotional themes, abandonment, perfectionism, grief, we should be gaining new clarity about the situation, right? If we're doing the work, we should be gaining new clarity, right? And even though it might present itself again, we should have leveled up and be able to see differences and nuances about the situation, about ourselves. At some point, when that thing that normally makes you react shows up, at some point we should be able to respond. We should be growing through the process, right? Give yourself permission to feel, to revisit, and to evolve. Because we're not going to get it all right all the time right away. We're just not. We're human. And here's the reality, healing doesn't follow a checklist, it's layered. And if I'm being honest, sometimes it's really chaotic. Because sometimes we get in that space where we're feeling all the things all the time, all at once. And that's okay. We just have to trust the God. We just have to trust the God we serve, and we have to trust the process. And believe that all things are working for our good. All things. And here's the thing about the process, something I want to say. Sometimes it can be lonely. Yep. Because sometimes we have to do it by ourselves. Right? Some things can only happen in that space where you and God reside. Sometimes we have to walk away. We have to leave things that no longer serve us, whether that's a toxic relationship, a limiting belief, or a draining environment, right? Leaving is a lot of times the first courageous step we take toward healing. But sometimes it can feel lonely because you're stepping out of what you know, what's familiar to you, into what's necessary. Because the truth is, a lot of times we can't heal in the same place that breaks us. You have to step away from it, right? And here's what I want you to know: stepping away isn't always avoidance. And there is a distinct difference between hiding and healing, right? Because in healing, we choose solitude so that we can reconnect with God, reflect, and restore. It's a place for transformation, right? We hide so that no one can see us. So we're not hiding. We're healing, right? That's the goal here. Healing is a deeply personal journey, right? And even with support, because community is important. We were not created to live life alone. But there is a difference between living life alone and seeking solitude with the Father, right? But here's the reality: the inner work of healing is something only you can do. And sometimes that looks like you have to step away so that you're no longer distracted by voices that have the ability to distort the truth, right? We have to get to a space where we can look within ourselves and face our own pains and struggles. Because as much as our loved ones may love us, as much as they might wish they could take the pain away, as much as they might wish they could carry it for you, the reality is they can't. Some work is purely you and God, right? And here's the amazing thing about being in that space is that God meets us there. He meets us in the middle of the chaos. And oftentimes when we get to that space, that's where we can get our breakthrough. Right? Jesus in the desert, Hagar in the wilderness. Get into that space where we can have time with just us and the Father. Often sets us up for being able to reach a breakthrough. Right? And so, as I've said, this is a journey. And on any journey, chances are setbacks are going to happen, right? And I think we need to just sit with that for just a second because setbacks are going to happen. Because we're human. We're going to make mistakes. There's a possibility that we may fall into old habits, repeat mistakes, right? It's a part of being human. But I don't want you to see setbacks as a weakness. Instead, I encourage you to see them as an opportunity. Use those setbacks as an opportunity to pause, to reflect, and to recalibrate, right? Because the thing about setbacks is they reveal those things that we still need to take care of. They illuminate the tender places that we've overlooked, right? They're not punishments, they're mirrors. For example, a moment of emotional overwhelm might reveal where there are some boundaries that are still porous, or there's some grief that's still unprocessed. Right? But something has to happen in order for that to present itself, right? When something breaks down, it's not always a breakdown. Sometimes it's a breakthrough in disguise, right? What if that setback that you're going through is showing you where your soul still needs gentleness? What if that's what it is? This setback is so that you are aware of this area of opportunity to grow, right? Setbacks deepen our resilience. Every time you choose to get up again, you build spiritual muscles, right? That's how we get stronger. Resilience isn't just bouncing back, it's getting wiser in the process, right? Being able to hold grace and grit at the same time. Experiencing setbacks allow us to do that. And when you come out of a setback, you're not starting over, you're starting with more experience. And that's a great place to be. In a space where you can move forward with more experience, right? Setbacks don't mean that you messed up. It doesn't mean that you're broken. They mean you're brave enough to keep going. So, what does our faith tell us about that? James 1 2 and 3 tells us to consider it pure joy whenever you face trials, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. So, James isn't telling us to be that trials are to feel joyful. He's actually inviting us to reframe them as an opportunity to be transformed. It's about being able to trust God, right? And here's the thing, trials are inevitable, they're going to happen. The word whenever implies that the hardship is a part of the journey. Having struggles, it's normal. It's a part of the path. They test what's beneath the surface: your belief, your endurance, your trust in God. But here's what I want you to know: testing isn't about proving your worth, it's about strengthening your foundation. Because perseverance is spiritual stamina, it's the ability to keep going even though the hill is getting steep, right? Trials come to build endurance, not to break you, but to prepare you. Because they're coming. One thing about life is it's gonna life. And those things that happen to us today help to prepare us for the thing that's going to happen tomorrow. Because it's not a matter of if something is going to happen, but when something happens. This is how we build our faith. So, how does our faith help us in the messy middle, right? How does that? How does our faith help us with that? What does the Bible say? Psalms 34:18 reads, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and He saves those who are crushed in spirit." So God is near, even in the breaking, even when we're unraveling. He's close. You're not going through this situation by yourself, right? Psalms 147:3 says, "He heals the brokenhearted and He binds up their wounds." This isn't just an emotional repair. This is spiritual restoration. God doesn't rush the process. He's just like any other skilled physician. He takes His time and He binds our wounds with care, with love, with gentleness. Matthew 5:4 reads, "Blessed are those that mourn, for they will be comforted." This is a promise. It's not something you have to earn. This is His promise to us, right? And Revelation 20:21-4 says, "He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain." That verse reminds us that if grief feels like it will always last, that it'll be here forever, this is our reminder, is that it won't always be like this, right? So in these spaces, we're becoming someone new as we go through this process. We change, we grow, we evolve. And here's the reality: grief and healing often strips away the identities we once clung to: the caregiver, the fixer, the overachiever, the strong one. And as we heal, sometimes we realize that those identities don't fit anymore. And that's okay to outgrow the version of yourself that you built so that you can survive, right? Grief and growth often walk together. Grief isn't just about loss, it's also about transformation. It forces us to reflect, reshape priorities, awaken deeper purpose. And you may feel disoriented, but that's often a sign that growth is happening, right? Grief changes us, but that doesn't mean something's wrong. Sometimes it's that something sacred is happening. There may even come a time when you don't recognize yourself, and that's okay. Healing can feel like we're shedding skin, where you look in the mirror and you see someone softer, stronger, quieter, more intentional. And that's not a bad thing, that's progress, right? So, how does therapy help during this season? Because it offers us a safe container to process the grief, the trauma, and the identity shifts. It's not a sign of weakness, it's an investment in wholeness. Because healing isn't about erasing pain, it's about honoring it, learning from it, and weaving it into who we are becoming. Faith-based therapy can often align emotional insight with spiritual truth. It doesn't fix you, but it gives you the support that you need. Because again, healing is a journey, not a destination. And so, what I would like for you to know is that you don't have to heal perfectly, right? It's not linear, it's not flawless. Some days you'll feel strong, and some days you'll feel like falling apart. But here's the reality: grace doesn't require consistency, it offers compassion, right? So we just want you to keep showing up, because God meets us right where we are, right? So let's release the pressure to be perfect. Healing is about being in His presence and not performance. Because God meets us when we show up, not when we're trying to show off. And again, He meets us right where we are, in the messy middle. So if any of this conversation resonated with you today, drop a heart in the comments. Let's talk about it. And until next time, keep choosing healing. Keep choosing joy. I love y'all. Bye.